or do we just go ahead and start? Have you all already done a roll call? Well, I couldn't get on.
No, I think that's needed.
Okay, can we go ahead and start with I'll call the meeting to order. Again, please accept my apologies for having such technical difficulties from Manassas here, but Ms. Strobel, could we go ahead and have a roll call?
Absolutely. Ms. Clark?
Here.
Dr. Gormley?
Here.
There.
Mr. Haid?
Here.
Ms. Howard?
Yes, I'm here on behalf of the Crime Commission for Chair Delegate Herring.
Thank you. Mr. Hugh Young?
I'm here.
Ms. Jurin?
I'm here.
Thank you. Dr. Maha?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here.
Chairman Miller?
Here, finally.
Colonel Settle? Okay, I don't think he's here. Senator Perry?
Here.
Dr. Tony?
I'm here.
Mr. Tracy?
Here.
And Delegate Watts?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, and that does give us the amount of people we need. Is that correct, Ms. Strobel?
That is correct. We have a quorum even with those who are not on camera.
Perfect. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. All those in favor will just say aye. Aye. And are there any opposed? And I don't suppose there's any
Do
reason.
we need a second?
Oh, that's okay. Do we have a second?
Yes,
Thank you.
Who was that?
that was Megan.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, does anyone need to abstain for any reason on the adoption of the agenda? I doubt it, but just want to make sure. All right. We'll move on to the approval of the draft minutes. I believe all of y'all have had the ability to review those as well. Can I have a motion to approve the draft minutes from our October meeting?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Mike.
You have those, Ms. Strobel?
I didn't catch the second.
I will second it, Denise Tony.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I believe
Aye.
everyone is in favor, unless can someone say if they are opposed, or is there anyone that for some reason needs to abstain? All right, hearing none, I'm going to move on to Director Jackson. Ms. Jackson, do you want to go ahead and give your report?
Certainly. Let me share my slides. The slides have been posted to the website, but all right. You should be able to hopefully see those if somebody can confirm. Yes, thank you.
They are up.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this lovely day with ice and snow and more to come. But it's wonderful that we can go ahead and have this meeting and not have to reschedule since the General Assembly session is about to start and busyness all around. So let's see if I can. So just to give you an update on our Central Laboratory Capital Project, there was actually an article in the Times-Dispatch this morning that talks about the construction and what we are so excited about with this building, but we are still on schedule for completion within the last quarter of 2025 and move in the first quarter of 2026. So we have made some pretty major milestones with that construction. That Skanska has reported that they have moved over to the permanent electrical power from Dominion, which is a good milestone, as well as they are very close to being fully weathered in, which means that they will be able to work on a lot of the finishes on the inside of the building. And we also did just receive from Skanska a video that is just 1 minute long, and I'm going to show that if I can make that happen. That shows, so that was the site, and this is kind of like a time-lapse photography of each month since it began. They've been working on construction now for 2 years, and so a lot has changed from when it was first begun, and so this is just kind of a cool little video that is not very long. So remembering that the central laboratory for the Department of Forensic Science is the taller side that we're looking at right now. And over on the other side, as we go around, the first floor is all for the medical examiner's office with their morgue facilities and lots of other things as well, like the state anatomical program. And then the second floor is for training, especially for law enforcement. And then the top floor is for statewide offices on that side. So anyway, it's kind of a cool little video. Let's see if I can just get back here. So the one thing that that I will be able to start showing you are some pictures of the inside instead of just the outside. They had kind of sealed in this toxicology laboratory so that it would be in a conditioned space so that they could go ahead and start putting in some of the laboratory casework and other things so that they could have one of the laboratories kind of put together as kind of like a template that they would then know how it was that they were going to be installing gas lines and all of that kind of stuff moving forward. So it's kind of cool to watch some of that happen as well. So with our accreditation, as I've reported multiple times, our current cycle expires September 30th of 2026. Normally that would mean that we would have our full assessment in the spring of 2026. But since we are planning to move into the new facility early in 2026, we are working with that accrediting body, ANAB, to determine what our best option is for our next full assessment, whether or not we should go ahead and have that full assessment before we move so that then they would just come in and do kind of a touch-up assessment of the new facility to make sure that the new facility was meeting all of the criteria that is necessary for security and all of that kind of stuff. And so that is something that we are working on, and we're happy to say that they are being helpful in kind of looking at the pros and cons to that. Hopefully we'll have that worked out by our next meeting, and I will let you know how we're going to move forward. I had said at our last meeting that we were working on a new seized drug dashboard that using Power BI. This is using data from casework for seized drugs in our controlled substances section. And this is data that we normally share in a variety of written reports and with the National NIFLS program. But we wanted to see if it would be helpful to have this available to different types of folks in Virginia, from law enforcement to Commonwealth attorneys to behavioral health people. And so that has launched. And the link is on the slide if you would like to check that out. There's a lot of different information about the different trends of drug classes in different parts of the state. So last year we did try and provide a lot of outreach to our stakeholders. This is just a list of presentations that we gave to different stakeholder organizations, and we're very pleased that we were able, that these groups are inviting us to come and give updates about the department so that we can provide information that is helpful to them, and then also helpful to us for them to understand changes to types of testing that we provide or submission guidelines, that type of thing.
Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Caroline. I'm not sure if the slides are supposed to be advancing, but I'm still looking at the accreditation slide. Maybe it's on my end and my own internet connection.
I'm seeing
anyone-
agency outreach.
Can anyone else see
Right.
the agency outreach slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it must be my internet connection. Sorry. Thank you.
No. So we are still trying to move forward with providing pre-log to law enforcement for them to be able to enter information about cases at their desk prior to bringing evidence into the laboratory. So we have been doing testing with law enforcement for this, and I did want to point out that last year there was a legislative change in the bill that was carried by Delegate Kent that did include language to allow for in 19.2.187.01, which is the statute that talks about our certificates of analysis and talking about how the chain of custody is intact within the agency or within the laboratory. It has always talked about the request for a laboratory examination form, or RFLE. And so we had language added to include or evidence submission receipt, either by hand or by electronic means, to make it so that both the electronic chain of custody or the chain of custody on the RFLE would be appropriate for that particular code section. So our evidence receiving, when we did a reorganization last year of our evidence receiving section, we now have a program manager who is over evidence receiving for the entire state. And Ellen Spain is that program manager, and she's been working to kind of increase the consistency with evidence receiving across the state, and has helped to come up with some new ideas to help with our communication with law enforcement. And so one of the things that has been successful in our central area that we may include for other areas is that submitters have spent a day or some amount of hours in the evidence receiving section learning how staff review the RFLEs, how they apply the policies, how they inspect the evidence packaging. And so this will assist them in applying that same kind of, what they have learned to evidence that they are bringing into the lab. And so we've done that with a couple of different agencies so far. We've also hosted the Virginia Association of Property and Evidence Professionals group meeting back in September in our Northern Laboratory. And that was very successful and provided some good opportunity for, again, information exchange and trying to increase consistency in evidence handling. In our evidence receiving section, we do have 6 evidence specialists that are currently in training. And so that has provided some challenges, but that is, at least we have the positions filled. And so the training hopefully will be completed in several months, and we will then be fully trained and fully staffed in evidence receiving. So we did also undergo several audits and reviews in 2024 as a state agency, basically. We did recently in the fall complete, or I guess in November, complete the IT security audit. And there are some findings that with that particular audit, as we have changed to the SEC 530, and some of our documentation still needed to be updated to be consistent with the SEC 530. But that we have a we have a plan in place for addressing those concerns that has been approved and are moving forward with that. We're in the APA internal control cycle for APA audits. And so we completed that this year and also turned in our ARMIX report as required in the fall as well. Again, we have recommended 8 compounds for the Board of Pharmacy to consider at their December 17th meeting. Is my understanding that they approved these 8 compounds to be included in Schedule 1, but that is a process that takes a couple of months before it is officially in the register.
Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm not able to see the PowerPoint. We're seeing your Teams screen.
Yeah, I was just about to add that to the chat.
What in the world? Let's try that again.
I feel much better. I'm not the only one having technical difficulties today.
Now we're good. We see Board of Pharmacy expedited scheduling.
Okay. I swear I didn't touch anything to do that, but apparently I'm wrong. So must have done something. Right. So these these compounds each year after the Board of Pharmacy has scheduled whatever they're going to schedule via the regulatory process, those generally get picked up in a bill and to be put into the Controlled Substances Act each year, since they're regulatory, when they're scheduled through this expedited regulatory process, they remain scheduled for 18 months unless they are picked up and put into the Controlled Substances Act via legislation. So if you remember, Mason had provided information to you a couple of times about a new organization that was forming called the National Association of Forensic Science Boards, or NAFSB. And the FSB, our FSB, agreed and voted for me to apply for membership to represent the FSB on this body. And so I did apply for and was accepted as the level 1 member of this organization. And so that is good. And I did attend the meeting that was held in November in Albany, New York. And Amy Jenkins, our counsel, she attended with me. And Dr. Corrado was also there. She works at Syracuse, so she was close and came, and was coming anyway. And so the 3 of us presented on a Virginia Spotlight panel. There were a couple of states that had a Spotlight panel, and apparently at their inaugural meeting last year, there were different states that provided a Spotlight. And so basically in that presentation that we gave, we talked about the structure and the mission of our department and how it works in Virginia, because Virginia is not necessarily like a lot of the other states, in that we are not part of law enforcement. We talked about our structure of the Forensic Science Board and the Scientific Advisory Committee, and talked about the benefits of having those dual bodies. And in my mind, the benefits are that for the FSB, we have a breadth of stakeholders who are on this Forensic Science Board, and we also have a tie between the two groups because we have 2 members of the Scientific Advisory Committee that sit on the FSB. And on the Scientific Advisory Committee, we have a broad range of scientific experience for those sitting on that committee, so that we have folks that are familiar and have expertise in all the different disciplines that we perform. And we talked about how these benefits have assisted DFS in historical case reviews where we've had assistance from other state agencies, and also the benefits of having a a good cross-section of scientists to do reviews of our scientific methods and our new method validations. And so that's kind of what we presented. Otherwise, there were presentations about different types of boards. There were presentations about things that states who don't have boards, that are interested in boards, might want to consider as they're thinking through putting a board together and that type of thing. But I can certainly make sure that I haven't done this, but send make sure that you have a link to the agenda of that meeting so that you can see what was discussed. I should have put it on the slide. Sorry about that. So for the workload statistics, I don't have all the different graphs of all of the sections showing trends because we're on a snow day today. And today is when our statistics became available. They have not been uploaded into the Power BI on the OGDA site. And so they will be available hopefully in a couple of days. But we got our quarterly statistics just so that you could see where we are with average case turnaround times for each of the sections. Still, forensic biology is one of our biggest areas of concern. Digital and multimedia evidence, we are starting to dig our way out. And we are holding steady in controlled substances and toxicology. So for the DNA, where we certainly are continuing to have that concern, we are working to fill and train the 2 positions that we received in the FY25 budget. One of those people has been hired in Northern. We thought we were close to hiring someone in Western, but that has fallen through. And so we are going to have to repost that. Our PERC processing unit that hopefully will streamline how we are processing PERC kits or sexual assault kits is well on its way. We've got one biologist that's online that's working to help put processes in place. And then the 4 that we received in the budget are in training, and they are expected to complete in March, so that hopefully we can then put that whole process online statewide. We are still planning to outsource some non-persons cases from all locations to a private laboratory, and that is something where we are working on the procurement. We had reached out to see if DPS was available, Department of Purchases and Supply, to assist us. I'm not sure they're going to have the bandwidth to assist us, so we may be just doing that procurement with our own staff. And then I just wanted to finish off by giving an update on where we are with staffing and budget. So our MEL is 369, and that is made up of both general fund and non-general fund positions. So the non-general fund positions are ones where we have received funding in a federal grant that we have staff on. And so some of those are just regular staff members, such as we have from the capacity enhancement backlog reduction for DNA grant. We have 5 scientists who just are working in the DNA section off of that grant, and they count towards that 27. But we also have some time limited research projects, and so we have staff on as well that are just working on a particular project that will no longer be with us after that project is in place. So current staffing for general fund, we have 320 in place, and 342 is the MEL. So all of the other, the difference between the 342 and the 320, they are all being recruited, and so we don't have any positions or FTEs that are general fund based that we are not seeking to fill. So we are, and we've talked about at a previous Forensic Science Board meeting about the fact that we believe that we need to do a compensation study, particularly to look at salaries for folks in the Northern Lab, but we will look statewide. And so that is something that our human resources team has begun to work on and will hopefully complete in the first half of 2025. And so just as a information source of our funding, so we are mostly a general fund agency. We only have 5% of our funding that comes from federal grants. And then our agency expenses, we have 68% of our expenses that are personnel, 14% that are laboratory, and that's laboratory supplies, instrumentation, that kind of thing. And then 12% facilities, since we do own and operate our 4 laboratory facilities. And then 6% for administration and travel. In the governor's introduced budget that just came out in December, there were 2 changes that the governor had put forward. One is to give us an additional 2 positions and the funding to support those 2 positions for facilities maintenance people for the new laboratory. The new laboratory is approximately twice the square footage of our current facility. And so looking at so this makes sense because we currently have 2 facilities people now, plus the supervisor, and adding 2 more is appropriate for a space twice as big. There are a lot of different systems in there that are complicated, and so we may find that that's not sufficient, and we will, but we will be monitoring that as we move into the new facility. And it's great for these folks to be hired before we move so that they can be trained on the new facility as the different systems are being installed. And then also to increase the staffing for the forensic biology section or DNA by 2 additional people. So last year, I just also wanted to report that we did get approval to carry over our year imbalance to pay for the new breath alcohol instruments that we anticipate paying for by the end of fiscal year 25. We're getting very close to the end of the procurement process. It's certainly been a long process, but hopefully we are going to find instruments that will provide service to the Commonwealth for many years to come. The current instruments have been in place since 2008, so we want to make sure that we find something that is going to stand the test of time and provide great service to Virginia. So we're glad that we were able to carry over these funds so that we could, since this money was what we were allotting to pay for those instruments back in 2024. And just to give you, since you have given us permission to apply for grants, I just wanted to give a list of the ones that we have gotten notice that we have received. This is basically all of the ones that you approved for us to apply for. I think there's a couple of them that the dollar values of what we received is not exactly what we had asked for, especially in the block grants. And that just little changes get made. So I just wanted to let you know what the final values were. And that is all the information that I wanted to share with you today, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Director Jackson. As always, very informative and detailed report. Do any members of the board have questions for Director Jackson regarding her report? Give everyone a second to take off their speaker. If not, we can jump back. We're going to move on to old business. Counselor Jenkins, do you want to update us on the Burton cases?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I do not have a PowerPoint. I know my limitations technologically, and I'm going to stay within them. I did want to bring you up to date from your last meeting on October 9th about what we had been working on, both the department and the Virginia State Crime Commission staff on the Mary Jane Burton cases. As you all recall, the Scientific Advisory Committee had directed the department to notify all affected parties with the Mary Jane Burton cases back at their April meeting. And in her update from the October 9th meeting, Director Jackson talked about how DFS was working to complete all the notifications to the law enforcement agencies, and those had been sent out. Both to law enforcement agencies and to the Commonwealth's attorney's offices, that we were in the process of notifying all incarcerated individuals with confirmed convictions. And we'd also had DOC at our request push out a notification on the inmate tablets to notify those that were incarcerated of the review, and they were advised that they could write into us if they thought their case may be included for the review, to have us confirm that for them and then include them as on the list of incarcerated individuals. We were receiving in October letters from inmates, and we were reviewing those and determining if they should be included in the review or not. In addition to those notices, we met with the work group that had been assembled by the Crime Commission of interested parties, stakeholders, and they also suggested to DFS that we might want to notify the defense bar, utilizing some of the major defense bar groups. And that was done in November. I sent out a notice through VACDL, the Virginia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, through the IDC, and through the Virginia State Bar. Maria Jankowski, the executive director of IDC, also indicated that she would share the email with the list of attorneys on the certified court-appointed counsel list. So that all went out the first part of November. To date, I haven't received any inquiries or information from those notices, but that information was forwarded. We've also worked to complete all notifications to all incarcerated individuals that have confirmed convictions. Those individuals were referred to the coalition of attorneys that have been formed by the UVA Innocence Project, and that case review is currently ongoing, is my understanding from the UVA Innocence Project. We've also continued to receive information on convictions from law enforcement. We sent a request that they provide us conviction information if they were able to locate it. We've gotten many responses back from that, and I sent a reminder through the Sheriff's Association, through the chiefs of police, and also through the Commonwealth's attorneys in early November, just to remind them to continue to review those. For some jurisdictions, they have a number of cases, so it's going to take some time for them to pull that. I've heard from affected agencies, that they're in the clerk's office going through very large old judgment books. And if you know what I'm talking about, you are at least as old as I am, and that those binders are falling apart, and they're having to look through names and try to determine if they've located the right conviction orders for us. But we've been getting that information in as well. Also at that October 9th meeting of the board, Dr. Arrington provided an overview of the State Crime Commission staff's work plan. They've continued to work with us. They are reviewing files to verify conviction information. They're pulling personal identifying information from our DFS case files and offense details. And they are also working with the Department of Corrections, Probation, and Parole, the next group that they look to want to identify were people currently under DOC supervision for an offense where Ms. Burton was the forensic examiner. They have about 76 individuals that they are looking at, and they have inquired through the local offices of probation and parole and are receiving responses back on that to verify identity and conviction information for those individuals. And as soon as we have convictions verified for those individuals, we will also notify them as well. Although those individuals are not in the group that Virginia UVA IP's attorney coalition have agreed to review, we would just be doing a general notification and encouraging those individuals to reach out to a criminal attorney for assistance. The Crime Commission has also been looking at this issue. At the October 22nd meeting, Director Jackson spoke and gave an overview of what had occurred to date, and also our quality assurance program or control system rather, for the agency. And also Christina Arrington provided an overview of the numbers that are currently there for convictions, for cases, for suspects, all of those different things. And at that meeting, the staff proposed to the Crime Commission that they put together a panel to review these cases and determine whether or not Ms. Burton engaged in a pattern of misconduct. They were looking at a specific subset of cases to make that determination. About 250 is what is currently set aside, that the Crime Commission staff has already taken a look at those files, and there's some indication of testimony there, or there are also the execution and exoneration files as well included. We've solicited additional feedback from the staff, with the staff from the work group. That work group met again on December 6th, and budget language has been circulated, draft budget language for this independent panel to review these cases. If it is passed, DFS would agree to provide any support as needed, most specifically access to the files. And DFS stands committed to providing any DNA testing for any of these cases, whether the 200 reviewed or any other individuals that are reaching out, if they're ordered by the court, or if that DNA testing is agreed to by the parties and the evidence is available for us to review and test. The Crime Commission is scheduled to meet again tomorrow at 11 o'clock to review the legislative proposal, and we will keep you updated. I suspect that we will have both Dr. Arrington and Kristen Howard, the Executive Director of the Crime Commission, speak at the April meeting to give you an overview of both of those fronts, both the numbers and the reviews as they're going, as well as the independent panel budget language. We are going to continue in the interim, though, to follow the directive by the Scientific Advisory Committee to notify affected parties. I have been working to get a new legal assistant hired and on board, and have assistants now to start sending out more of these notification letters. It's a difficult process because we have to locate the individual as well. And so we're utilizing what resources we have available through LexisNexis to locate an address for that individual and get a notification letter to them as quickly as we can. But, in addition, we've got some convictions that are going to need to be confirmed as well. So it's going to be an ongoing process that's going to take some time, as impatient as I get to have it done as quickly as possible. So we will continue to provide you with updates on that as we work to confirm these convictions and get the notifications out as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I know Dr. Arrington is also present, as well as Ms. Howard. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Counselor Jenkins? Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Again, that was very detailed, as you did in the last meeting as well. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. Do we have anyone signed up, Ms. Strobel, for public comment?
No one has signed up. Thank you.
Do you see anyone on this call that is not a member of the board that may want public comment?
Could you
I should
please
just
raise
ask.
your hand if you use the raise your hand feature if you would like to speak? Members of the public? I don't see any.
I don't see any either. All right, we're going to confirm on Director Jackson. We are to confirm that we are going to have our meeting on April 23rd,
Yes, sir.
and that will be downtown.
Yes.
Same bat place, same bat time. Perfect. All right. Unless anyone else has anything, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Hearing nothing, I go ahead and adjourn. Everybody stay safe today. Be patient with de-icing and removing snow. You'll get to it eventually. Don't kill yourself.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes.
Yep. Happy New
Thank
Year.
you.
Everyone
Thank you,
be safe.
everybody.
And Ms. Jackson, if you could confirm my attendance, Delegate Watts. Thank you. You can see I finally got my camera going.
We see that, and I marked it down at 2:15 p.m. Was it any earlier than that?
I'm not sure, I
Okay.
just know that I've pressed the right button finally on another computer. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, we'll find out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.